Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Listeners, here we go again, and I get hyped for every episode. It is such an honor to get to meet people from all over the world, but this one is a little bit special. Nothing against all the previous guests, but this one's a little bit special for me, and you'll find out in a second why. But we are season 3, episode 23. Brandle Easter, coming from Wichita, Kansas, is our guest today, and you are listening to Life's Essential Ingredients, and that is part of C4 Leaders. And C4 Leaders is the only nonprofit to utilize the pizza making process to create space for our companions to be seen, heard, and loved. We write children's books, obviously host this podcast, and use the most amazing handmade, hand-tossed sourdough pizza. Okay. Bring out the best in each other. So if you're interested in checking that out, go to pizzadays.org to support our important work. But now let's get into this show, because he's already clapping. He's hyped. He's been up since 4 and he's out in Wichita. So there's a little bit of time difference. First place where you can find him, he's all over the place, but the number one site is his. And so you go to gccoachconsultant.com, and that's GoalCastCoachConsultant.com, gccoachconsultant.com. About our guest, Brandle is the founder and CEO of GoalCast, a coaching and consulting company. Brandle's focus is like the triple threat: basketball skill development, personal coaching, and consulting. With over 40 years of training, playing, and coaching basketball, and nearly 3 decades of pastoral fieldwork, Brandle continues to expand and shape his coaching style. Every individual's experience is unique. Brandle methodically searches for the right program and routine for his clients, resulting in a winning and welcoming approach as he and his clients travel through their transformational journey. Let's go, Brandle. Thanks for sharing your many gifts and talents with the world, for being a guest on the show, and most importantly, a friend to me and my family. Brandle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to connect with you, man. It's great to see you.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be good. And we go way back. And Brandle, I think you've listened to a few episodes, but we always start with the thought of the day. And this one's from your buddy, Ralph Waldo Emerson. Here it goes. Without ambition, one starts nothing. Without hard work, one finishes nothing. The prize will not be sent to you. You need to win it. Why that one for you?
Man, you know, I've listened to more than a few of your podcasts, and I've always been a bit intimidated by this question or this thought of the day, because you picked it. And so when you say, why did I pick that for you? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you have a better idea. I think there's something to the seeking of your goals. There's a seeking piece. There is a curiosity piece. There is a personal investment piece to growth. That would be my guess, or what I would take away from that.
All right. I like it. And I like how you're throwing it back on me. That's what a good coach does. Just throws it back right at the host. And yeah, so just, you know, Brandle and I met Brandle. I don't know if I was a junior or senior, and he was playing basketball with my brother Kevin at West Valley junior college back then. Now they call them community colleges, but junior college. Sure. And I just saw somebody who was ambitious. I saw somebody who worked hard. I saw somebody who wanted the prize. And I saw somebody willing to take action towards going to achieve that. And then I saw somebody who was struggling with life, as we all do and go through, and needing ambition to help us focus, needing to, what I would say, to bust that ass, to finish what you started. and needing some sort of eye on the prize, which was at that time, and again, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but just my perspective and me recollecting of the prize of kind of getting out of your own way and being able to focus on something bigger than yourself, and now fast forward, whatever it is, 20, 30 years since we've kind of shared space together, and knowing that prize for you came through you finding your faith, and then now taking all your ambition, all your hard work, the prize of you laying a foundation for yourself, and then sharing that with the world and the people that are fortunate to get coached by you and to share space with you. And so that's why I picked it.
Okay. There you go. Sounds good.
All right. We'll just leave it at that. I left them speechless, Pasho. And Pasho, I'm going to give this is just going to be a crazy show. My Pasho was ready for this, baby. We were talking yesterday, but Brandle, don't take this personally, but Pasho was watching fishing. He's a fisherman. He's from Alaska. He's been on the boat. He's risked his life. He was watching some fishing show, and I said, hey, we got a show, Pasho. So he had to interrupt, put his fishing line down, and get back to the show. Pasho, welcome to the show, baby.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm a little late. My time is off. I thought it was early, but I got to say, I was talking to my Pasho Brandle, and he doesn't give out a lot of, he gives out a lot of compliments, but there's some that are specific when you can tell he's like really excited about someone. And when I was asking him about you, he was like, and he had a pause, and you hear him now, he never pauses. Man could talk for days straight without pausing. But he had to say, he's like, and I think the word is he described you as the most incredible basketball player he's ever seen. And we've seen a lot of great basketball players. And I was like, wow. And I got fired up yesterday. I mean, you couldn't tell this morning I was watching fishing, but I got fired up just to meet you. And man, I'm so, privileged to be here. Because like I said, he doesn't throw that out anytime. So.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It's exciting.
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, let's get into the show. That's enough of me talking and Pasho talking. And again, we're on with the GoalCast coach. Again, gccoachconsultant.com, Brandle Easter. We always start the show, Brandle, with the same question because I want the listeners just to kind of get to know you. And so you can take it any which way you want, any part of your life that you want to share. But what was life like growing up?
I grew up middle class. I had a lot of cool experiences. My mom and my stepfather are both super educated. They focused on that. They're both military veterans. And I come from a family of people that have served in the military. And if we're talking origin stories, my stepfather adopted me when he married my mom. And I say this not for pity, but it was it played a substantial part in my thinking and my personhood. Between the ages of, before I got to sixth grade, my stepfather had told me that I wasn't his son and that he wanted his own. And there was a bit of frustration there. And I share that vulnerably. And I say that he had his own story, but he shared that with me. And so there was always a sense of wanting to belong and where did I belong? And then the other piece of it was my self-confidence or the lack thereof, or the questioning and mattering. And those things kind of sat back and played a huge part in my development growing up. I was more sensitive and desensitized to compliments or affirmations and more in tune with what I wasn't or not belonging. I grew up for quite some time as a only son. And so I had a lot of time alone. I also developed some creativity and imagination in that time, but there was just this piece of me that was always looking for where do I do it? Where do I find value and where do I belong? And trying to find those spaces in all kinds of places, which, obviously got me in a lot of trouble over the course of time. And, you had said the ambition of basketball as a senior in high school, after a bunch of crazy stuff that happened, I ended up transferring to a school across town. I grew up in Sacramento, California. I'm a South Sider. I ended up going to C.K. McClatchy High School for my senior year after a bunch of other things. And I tried to make a team. And the coach, the great Harvey Tahara, told me that the only reason I would make the team would be if this 6'3" Vietnamese guy would stop smoking. That was the only way I would make the team. And the last day of tryouts, I was talking to him, Coach, am I going to make the team? We came out and we walked by these pillars, and that 6'3" Vietnamese dude, he could hoop. He could hoop. If he would have stopped smoking, I wouldn't have made the team, and it would have been a whole nother story. But we come out, and I'm talking to him, and he's looking around, and he goes, well, and he looks over, and that kid's smoking a cigarette leaned up against the pillars. And he goes, we'll see. The next day, I was the 12th man on the team, started off as the 12th man on the team, had a lot of help, a lot of support from different folks. And I ended up getting to play and start in an El Dorado tournament. And I didn't stop starting after that. And, I, in some senses, found my place, my identity. I found a place that I mattered. And what you saw was me in my quest to reach my goal. And my goal was to play overseas. I didn't want to be in the league. I didn't want to play stateside. I wanted to go overseas, and that was my goal. And whatever it took for me to get there, that was my goal. So I did that. And then, it was all about me. And yeah, I ended up over the course of time and in different Gulliver's travels, understanding God in some sense and my place therein. And over the course of time, I became more others focused. And so that's where I'm at now. I have to remind myself to not be distracted by trying to be something else, but I just want to help people. I want to support people. I want people to know that they're valued regardless of what they're trying to accomplish and where they're at in that. They're valued already, and help them develop confidence and not only, coach them, but walk with them. It's a relational thing for me. And that's what I'm interested in.
Man, you said so much right there. I'm just gonna replay just a couple things, and first off, just to give respect and love to Coach Tahara. I doubt he's going to listen in, and I think he's still alive. He was in incredible shape, and he is. I don't know if it's still accurate now, but one of two individuals in the Sacramento area, and Sac actually has really good basketball. A lot of people don't understand that. It doesn't get much love, but there is some athletes in the Sacramento area that can hoop. And Coach Tahara is one of two that I'm aware of that's won a championship on the boys and girls side. And when I was coaching at Davis, we had a great game. Unfortunately, he got us, I think, 40. Don't laugh at me, Brandle. 47-46 in the third round playoff game at Tokay. And then he went on to win the section title that year. And whoever won that game was going to win the section. It was just, we were the two better teams, and unfortunately play each other. And we put it on them in the first quarter. And we didn't have, my team we ran some good stuff, but didn't have real good shooters that year. And he came out playing man, and we were up like 17-9. Then he switched zone, and that was a wrap.
Oh, wow.
Try and battle, but what an incredible man, great coach. I always had respect for him. His wife was in a wheelchair, and he always just treated her like the queen that she was, and just a great coach, great man. And yeah, so cool that you got to experience him for a season. I'm sure he had a huge influence in your life. But in hearing your story, and how you were trying to find your way growing up, and, sorry to hear about your stepdad not giving you the love that you needed at that time in your life. But I'm sure that has obviously caused you to search inside yourself. And like you said, to learn and find your way, which again, you found it through others' focus. And there's a great quote from Gandhi that I love: the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And
nice.
Now seeing that you're going to mix in your belief, and I don't know if that's part of your GoalCast stuff or not. I imagine it's just a big part of who you are in your pastoral life that you've lived, but to use that and to find your way in serving others. And just, man, it just makes me feel so good of just knowing the work that you're doing and the people that you're getting to serve, and therefore help them find their way and achieve whatever is their goal. So congrats for that, man.
Thank you. It was a lot of searching, and to get to this point, and I think I fought it for a really long time. And I think over the course of time, it's just been beat into me, the battle of attrition to ultimately serve others.
It's just what the world needs. Just what the world needs. It's such a challenging time. We can get so focused on just us. And I think when we can get out of our own way is the best way to just help this world. And so, yeah, so excited. But let me ask you, the show is called Life's Essential Ingredients.
Okay.
So if I were to be a fly on the wall in your house, what would I say? What would I witness are your essential ingredients that allow you to be, and this might come across a little bit weird, but allow you to be the best version of yourself for that given day?
Sure.
So what is that?
I think there's a space, and that space comes from a mutual space to be, to not necessarily have to act, but to be, and the grace to grow, and the support in that process. And there's something to valuing self-awareness. There's something to being self-aware. I would say at home, it's the safest place. For me, it's the safest place. And I would, over the course of time, I wish every place could be that safe, where you don't have to be on, perform, all of those things. You can just be. And, we pick up each other's slack, and there's just a lot of grace, and we belong. The list goes on and on, but there's something to that space for authenticity.
I love it. And just the self-awareness, and not to replay and to go back, but, or to put words in your mouth again, but just in hearing the safest place, and then knowing, what you shared growing up and how that place potentially was safe before, I don't know, before your stepdad came to the picture, and then having someone say, hey, no, that you're not my son, so it's not safe anymore. You don't have anywhere to be. And you start to develop this self-awareness that you're less than. And so now hearing that, hey, for me, my life's essential ingredients are all about this safe place where I can just be, because I've had this self-awareness of knowing what wasn't safe. And then to have the grace to be able to grow and figure out who I am. And then knowing that you're sharing those ingredients with your family, and man, yeah, it's, again, I'm not trying to give you props, but but I am at the same time because I don't think we always can find that and have that self-awareness. And I think we can get stuck sometimes. And it just sounds like, I put a question mark. I'm taking notes the whole time when you're talking. When you said, to be, I'm writing that down, and I put a question mark, and then you're writing all these other notes. And then now it just makes so much sense, with everything that you're sharing. So yeah, no, I'm just, let's go, Pasho. Fire. Let's get into, we're going to jump all over the place, and you can take it any which way you want to, but I know you're fired up with your business. So let's just get that kind of out there first. And I just want to say, what's the most exciting part? Not even getting into like the business, but just the thought of it and having the goal, and then be like, oh man, I got my website up now. I got my, what's the most exciting part for you?
I think it's the being. It's the I've been dabbling in coaching since 1984. And that's not a long time, but I remember being in a position to give some direction and called on to do that. And so, over the course of time, I've gone through peaks and valleys in my whole coaching experience. And one of my hangups was I remember this specific instance. I was playing with a bunch of D1 guys playing at an open gym. You remember those open gyms at De Anza? It was similar to that. And there was a ton of people there. And so if you lost, man, you might as well go home. And I was on the floor with some heavy hitters. And I had saw an advantage for us. And we were going at it. This is like, I think in my career of playing, my jump hook has been blocked twice in my entire time. And I played against some guys. And it was a guy named Lorenzo Orr that played at SC. And this dude, I gave him everything I had, and this dude had so much vertical. I think he won the college dunk championship one year. This dude blocked it twice. And he was playing, we were playing against him, and I had a guy that had played for Central Florida or some place like that. Stocky dude, and they were just banging, man. And I had went to give this guy some input. I was like, man, don't shoot jump shots. Just bring that guy to the basket and get a bucket, because he can't stop you. And the dude yelled at me. He said, "You can't coach me." And I said, "I'm not trying to coach you. Can't coach me." And like, there, million, remember De Anza, there's like 1 million people in the gym. So everybody heard this. And I was so ashamed. And it caused me to kind of go into this shell. And so anytime that I gave people input or tried to coach folks, you run into people that are uncoachable by, you maybe, or me. Doesn't mean that they're uncoachable to everybody, but just in your specific case. And so instead of understanding the idea of part work, I that was the whole of me. And so this happened early on. And so in a lot of ways, it was hard for me to embrace the idea of being a coach because of that experience and not having the tools to be able to separate that experience and understand it for what it was and all of the dynamics that were at play. So, there's something to being able to do part work, but I think one of the things is just being. There's so much to it. I'm an artist, and so I'm not necessarily, for a long time, I didn't want to be the basketball guy. And so I started reading 100 books a year and really trying to grow and become more knowledgeable, and really stayed away from basketball for a very, very long time, but used basketball principles in the way that I mentored and walked with people. So just the idea of being, and I'm just starting the business side of this, but this is something that I would do for free, have done for free, and I'm sure I will do for free. I'm interested in the underdog. I'm interested in equity. I'm interested in resources. And over the course of years, I've developed an army of resources. And so, when I see people that have difficulty, I have a soft spot for them. People that the beauty of it is I don't have to coach everybody. The people that are out there, wherever they're at, whether they're in Wichita or Kathmandu, we'll find each other. And I might be just a person that's a part of their lives for a part of the journey until they go on to something different. There's just the beauty in being. And then there's others that I'm still walking with today that, will develop those relationships. So, I think I said a lot, but I think it's the opportunity to be who I am, how I want to, and to do it in a way that's kind of plays to my skill set.
You mentioned it a few times, just being, and you said just to be part of the journey. And I don't know, I'll just share it real quick, but it's just taken me back there. Are you familiar with the Camino de Santiago? Have you heard of that? It's this, I guess it's a spiritual walk. It's translated to the Path of St. James. And people have been doing this in Spain since the 9th century. And my wife and I had the good fortune of doing it last May. We walked from May 1 to May 31, about 600 miles.
Wow.
And just in you saying, hey, we might just have, one moment to share, to just be together. It just really took me back to that walk, because there's 400,000 people that do it every year. And there's a bunch of people doing it right now as we speak. And you might have, 10 steps with somebody and you share a smile because they speak French and you don't speak any French, or, they're speaking some other language, and you just be together on this journey, knowing that we're seeking something similar. It's going to be totally different, but it is similar at the same time. It's this transformation away to kind of take ourselves to be somewhere different in our mind, then hopefully come back and your heart is touched. Then you share that, just like you're doing with the people that are going to be blessed to be in your life, even if it's just for 10 steps, so to say.
Absolutely.
And so, it's just powerful. But I want to come back. I circled as well. You talked about basketball principles. And obviously, we're all three hoopers here. And I know there's other hoopers that are listening. And not that you have to be a hooper. But what are those principles that you share with your clients that are related to basketball?
It has to do with the way that I coach. One of the things that Coach Tahara used to do was when you did something, he would ask you, well, what was that? My nickname then was Ice. So he'd just go, Ice, what was that? He'd ask me, what was that? And so part of my coaching philosophy or my counseling philosophy is to help people realize their realities versus telling them. And so even as a pastor, message wise, I wasn't very fond of just giving people information. I was more interested in their realization and walking with them until, and helping them realize the beauty of God and seeing the intricacies that their lives afforded them. And I think the same as far as coaching people and them developing self-confidence or whatever, that's the role I like to play.
I love it. Last basketball. Well, maybe not the last one, but we've been talking about coaches, and I know, I don't know how he was in your life. I know what he meant in my brother's lives, Pete and Kevin. But Coach Bob Burton,
oh man,
I think we have so many influences in our life that
absolutely.
I never got to play for him, and probably would have been better off if I would have went that route. But what did Coach Burton teach you about life?
You know, he was the coach that I coined the phrase "get after it" from, and we've all heard that phraseology. But that was one thing that Coach Burton, when we talk about players, I'd sit in his office and he'd talking about coaching. He'd talk about guys around the country. When he talked about folks that he had scouted that we would play against, what he expected of us. And, you know, he was a great motivator. And so I remember him getting red. His face would get red, and he you know, you got to get after it. And I mean, it's okay. You guys got to get after it. And we knew what that meant. And, you know, in a lot of ways, it meant something generally. But individually, he had explained to me what that meant for me. And so I appreciated that. And it wasn't just on the court, it was off the court as well.
Yeah. Pasho, Coach Burton, whoo, he would get after it, and he would get in your face, like maybe a half an inch from your lip, and he's right underneath you, and he's spitting all over you, and he's doing somersaults, and he's taking charges, and he's diving on the floor. I mean, I used to love to go watch my brothers play. I wouldn't even watch the game. I'm watching Coach Burton, man. And you guys had some squads. And I remember City College of San Francisco was tough. And those games were just heated, and it was so fun. And then those open gyms at West Valley and De Anza, and just good time. I'm just getting goosebumps just thinking about all that. But let's keep rolling. You know, we're done with basketball, but I want to take your skill set and lessons that you learned and see how you apply the skills that we need as people, you know, and just dealing with life, change, love, relationships. You know, what are those skills in your role now as GoalCast coach? You know, what are those skills that you're seeing that you think we need? And I know I'm not trying to put you on the spot and just to generalize, you know, what are those skills that we need?
Well, I think there's something to a person developing a self-awareness. When I say self-awareness, there's, you know, your strengths, your weaknesses, who you are, that you're valued and that you matter as one, and that everybody matters. The star of, or the person that shows up and plays a quote unquote menial role, everybody matters. And so I want people to know that they matter. The people that don't necessarily get that. I had a lot of people speak into my life, breathe into my life that have instilled that in me. You haven't mentioned it, but I do have to give props to your father and mother and your family. I struggled mightily. And I remember being in a whole lot of trouble, and your father standing up for me in a courtroom and promising to be my guardian. And I remember it was a whole miracle situation, because I wasn't supposed to be able to rebound from this situation. And I remember Bob Burton picking me up from a correctional facility and bringing me to your house. And it was, I was dropped off at your house on Christmas Eve in the evening. And I remember coming in and not experiencing family like you guys had family. And I remember everybody sitting in chairs and having a present. And I remember before we got started, I felt so uncomfortable because there was a chair and I was amongst your family, and I was a family member. And that's what your mom And your dad had told me that these are your brothers and sisters. We're your family. And I was like, okay. And I'm sitting in this chair, and I remember your mom coming over to me, handing me a present and kissing me on the top of the head. And I just walked into this. And I never knew if anybody had any ill feelings towards me being there. I never, ever felt that. I felt like I had inherited these family members, and they were with me. You guys were with me. You wanted me to be successful. Your dad was instrumental in helping me pick out where I would go to school. It was, I want to be that for people. There was, when I was in high school, I remember that there was a custodian. His name was Howard, and he used to take time out of his day and play a million games of one-on-one with me. And he would give me input, how to get on the floor, what I needed to do. Hey, these are some things that you need to clean up. There was a guy named Dave when I was at West Valley that allowed me to stay with them. There were street people that played an incredible, not even incredible, an amazing role of just kind of coming out of themselves and helping me. And so there's been so many people along the way that have been helpful. And so my coaching philosophy and with people there's no limit to it, and it can change, and it's usually based on what a person needs at that specific time. But I want to be there and be a great support and remind them that they matter, they have value, and help them understand their skill set and develop their strengths and foundational things and soft skills, just the whole gambit. I mean, if you look at the website, there's so much more to me and my coaching than there is basketball. Basketball is just a piece of it. But I think that, basketball has also afforded me uncountable relationships. And with people, some I can talk about, and others I won't. But I've been afforded a lot of privilege based on the game of basketball, and learned a lot of lessons that stemmed from the game of basketball. I don't know if that answers your question, but it varies.
No, and I appreciate you going back and talking about when you did enter our life. And yeah, definitely. I mean, that's just how we grew up. Our house was just open to all people, and mom and dad just taught us just to love, period, and to serve others. And it's funny. A lot of my brothers and sisters, we've just taken that on, and all of us went into civil service in some way or form, and that's just a big part of how we were raised. But yeah, no, you coming in was a highlight for me, man. I remember you and I going up to the park and you trying to teach me how to play the game a little bit. And I told Mike, you were just so fun to watch. And I maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but I could have swore I was at one of the games and you had a breakaway, and Pastoral Brandle could play, man. He could just play and do whatever he wanted out there. But I could have swore you like jumped off of somebody's leg and dunked on him on the break in a game, Pacho. He's going down and he jumps off of a guy, and the guy's standing there. Do you remember that?
I've done that a few times, and those are the times that you're so high, it's like you're beyond eye level with the rim, and you could do whatever. And I did that. I did that in Holland. I did that in college, and both times that I did it, I did it 3 times. I did it in the Sacramento Kings free agent league, playing against Danny Ainge and those guys too. And there's always a guy that he jumped up. He can't jump that high. He jumped off my knee. And they're kind of explaining it, and I'm just like, whatever, it happened. But yeah, I do remember that.
Brandon, wait. How do you jump off someone's knee? Explain this to me. This is incredible.
So when they're in there, so I was a one leg jumper, and so I would, like Dr. J. That was a guy that I emulated. So when you go up, you kick you push your knee up like you're high jumping. And so, like, when you get ready to get into your two step, that could be your Euro step, the guy's in his defensive stance. And so there's his knee. And it just happens that, they crowd you or they get in your space. They've got that little line there that you can't, you got to be outside that to draw charges. And so, every once in a while, a guy will come outside that line right when I would be getting into my step. And there's a crowd of people around. And so, boom, it's just, and then you're up. And then you're already up.
You're up.
And then you go,
you're up.
it's like, there's times, the times I remember, this is how I would be over the rim. So the rim would be here. So I'm like this. I could tap it off my back, or I could just, I don't remember what I did, but it was like, yeah, that's what you call, putting it down with authority.
That's when we needed YouTube right there for something like that. Where was YouTube back then?
Yeah. And there's other people. I've actually seen people do it on YouTube, and it was that. It was exactly like that.
Wow. Hey, I got a question since I'm on here, Pasha, if that's all right with you. Brandle, from when you were growing up playing and all that, been through, played overseas and all that, and now you're coaching, what do you think is the biggest difference between the youth when you were coming up and the youth now? Do you see a difference?
Mm-hmm. And I'll say this is my experience, and I would, Butch Carter, Chris Carter's brother, he was doing a camp, and he talked about it, and he talked about some pros that you would say, man, these guys are the real deal. And he'd say, they came into the league, and he had come into the league, and they lacked a left hand. They couldn't play with both sides of their body. And I think that especially the difference between guys overseas and here is the fundamental piece a lot of times. And so they're able to do fundamental things where guys can be more flashy, but that doesn't necessarily, it's not sustainable. You know what I'm saying? It's not playing team basketball and those different types of things. So there's what are people with? The work ethic is different. When I came up, I remember going to open gyms, and you'd see different guys that played at UCLA and wherever, and they'd have a trainer, somebody rebounding for them. And I grew up, and I remember being overseas in the arena, shooting 3,000 shots twice a day and rebounding for myself. And so the work ethic is a bit different. And I think there's a process, and it's interesting. I grew up, and you didn't give anybody any information on what you did. When they saw you, they would see you on the court, and you would serve them. You wouldn't come out and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I didn't train. I don't now train people in public. You know what I'm saying? I don't, my days of going to a community gym and working a guy out are over. I don't do that. And other people do. And so how people approach the game is also different. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I played because I love the game. My first gig overseas, man, it was for $500 in a flat. I didn't have a car, any of that stuff, and I didn't care. I just wanted to play. Where it's about the money, and I got out when it wasn't about love and it was about money for me, and that was just me. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. Absolutely answers my question. Yes, thank you.
Let's get in. That's fun. That's a good segue. That was my next question for you. What is love, and how can we experience more of it?
Wow, I was going to ask you that. I'm always interested in what other people think of as love. And if I had to go first, I would say love is a decision. And so in counseling couples, married couples, troubled couples, in life in general, when you love something, it's deciding, it's a decision. It's not always based on how you feel. I loved basketball. Basketball was the most, that was my old lady. I could make the ball do what I wanted to do. I had spent so much time that we were one. And that was the decision. There were plenty of days that I didn't want to do it, plenty of days that I was discouraged, plenty of days that things didn't work out even after I had done work. I saw other people get opportunities that I wish I had. People were set up to be successful and those types of things more than quote unquote me. And it's a decision. And so when we talk about loving, I think what your parents exampled, what they actioned is that love. I was a guy that, and even after that, and even, you know, some people hear my story and you're hearing the kind of the, you know, the Reader's Digest version of it. They stiff arm you. And I'm guilty of stiff arming. You know what I'm saying? This person has this reputation, or they've done this. They what's happened in their lives, in this segment of their lives, becomes the entirety of them. And that's a lack of love. There's love is relationships. Love is there is a point. There are such things as boundaries. But your boundaries are maybe not someone else's boundaries. And I say that to say that regardless of if you're out there and you're feeling unloved, there's somebody that has the bandwidth out there. And it's my hope and prayer that you're able to find them and to be in community with them, to have a relationship with them, because maybe they've experienced what you've experienced, whatever that is. But there are people out there that understand your story, that it's their gift. And so there's when I think of love, it's for everybody. And it goes beyond what you've accomplished. It goes beyond the wrong that you've done. And you know, somebody would qualify that and say, well, you can't love everybody. It's like, yeah, you don't have the capacity. And to be honest and say, hey, my goal is I want to be able to love everybody. And I mean, everybody. And that love looks different, but there's this place where a person belongs, where they matter, they're valued, they're heard, they're seen. One of the kids that I mentored was a perfect example of this. We had spent some time getting coffee before he went to work, and there was a street person that was kind of camping out, and he kept coming and sitting by us, and I would like get up and move. I felt uncomfortable. And the guy, kept stationing himself. And so on our way out, the guy was outside smoking a cigarette. And I just walked right past him and I said, man, I wish they'd make a place where people could hang out like this. And he didn't even bat an eye. He just had a conversation. He said, hey, how are you doing? And he goes, well, what's going on? And they started having this conversation. And I sat there and watched him. He saw him, he heard him, he validated him, he treated him like a human being. And I think that's one of the deepest levels of understanding being created in the image of God, is the ability to humanize everyone. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. And I would say we're similar. I'm not going to get into it because we took a good chunk of time with that, but I would say in listening to what you shared, definitely similar ways that we want love to be reflected in the actions that we take.
Actions.
And I'll say that, and I like how you started off with it being a decision, and I would say, yeah, a choice. And I think if we want to create a world that does allow people, which is what our nonprofit is trying to do, to be seen, heard, and loved, well, that just comes, you mentioned self-awareness so much. That comes with having the self-awareness that this world is so much bigger than any one person. And if
Absolutely.
you get out of your own way and make the choice to realize there might be somebody that needs to be seen, heard, and loved, what can I do to take care of myself, to put myself in a position then to give that person the gift that they need? And then, yeah, for me personally, knowing that I'm trying to have my values and my actions be reflected in what I've been taught from my parents, which is they've been taught from their beliefs.
Yeah.
And so that's my 2 cents on love, because I think that would be, a whole long podcast in itself. But I think if we're talking about love, let's flip it over and get into, what are the things that get in the way of us loving ourselves, and I'll specifically talk about the skill, since we've been talking about skills, of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And what insight do you have on that?
There's a story that talks about the bottom line is you can't be forgiven unless you're willing to forgive. And it boils down to self-awareness, forgiveness. When I talk about my stepfather and I share what I share, there was a time that I was really, really angry about that scenario. But I got to understand where what he shared had come from, the root of that. And it made more sense. So there's a level of understanding that everybody has a story, and how they convey it and how they act on it. And sometimes we don't have the skills to navigate those things. And so what may have seemed like what it seemed like to me with my stepfather, some of it is I didn't have the skills. And there were many valuable things that I learned from him, how to think. I say that to say this. Forgiveness is a large endeavor. And understanding forgiveness is like love. You can forgive somebody and have boundaries. Now, they can go, well, how can you have boundaries? That's not forgiveness. That has to do with their understanding of it. And so the idea is, when we talk about forgiveness, is the ability to humanize people, to me. And understanding that they're coming from some place, they have a story. It may not be your story. You may not agree with it. You may be able to pick it apart. You may never know it. But everybody has a story. And at the end of the day, forgiveness is something that you can control. And it can look different for everybody. It's not, to me, a generalized thing. But there's a freedom in it.
We're going deep, man. And I'm enjoying this again. We're season 3, episode 23 with Brandle Easter from Wichita, Kansas. You find him at gccoachconsultant.com. That's GoalCast, coachconsultant.com. He's been coaching since 1984, but people now have the privilege of, he's got a YouTube channel. He's doing stuff on Instagram. And now available for you to tap into his expertise. So make sure you go to his website, gccoachconsultant.com. Man, I think we're at a good spot. I love ending the show with this. And this is, we've been going deep, but and I know you listen in to other episodes, but John Alston has this quote, the only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind. Let's fast forward. You're in great shape, still dunking on people like Dr. J. I think he had a video when he was like 63 or 65 and still down. But let's fast forward, 50 years and you've coached all these people and you've lived a full life and you've made mistakes and you've learned from them and you've loved and you've forgiven and everything else that goes with it. And you're at home. You're surrounded by everybody that's been just instrumental in your life, and you're getting ready to take your last breath and go to see the big fella above. And what is it that you want to leave behind with everybody that's going to be there as you are no longer here?
I would say it's similar to my life's goal was to play overseas. So I got to do that, and anything after that is gravy. Yeah. I would say I've already experienced it, and being able to play a part in some folks' lives, young and old, and they are aware, they love somebody, they're continuing to grow. And I got a long ways to go, a long ways to grow, but I'm experiencing it now, even in rubbing shoulders and seeing what you're doing now. And some of the people that I've walked with, seeing them and the impact that they're having is refreshing. To be able to witness that is cool. And watching the loyalty of my sons to other people as friends in the midst of however they're treated, and those types of things. There's just, I see it all around me where people live out who they were created to be.
Pashito, it's a tough one, but get us out of here, Pashito.
Wow, this has all been very deep, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, Brandon. I love hearing the old hoop stories. Always my favorite. But hey, thanks for everything you do. Keep doing it. The world needs more people like you, Brandon. Thank you.
They're out there. I'm just getting started. So if you go to any of those sites and it looks a little premature, we're just getting started. But thank you. It's cool to meet you. You and Jeff are road dogs. You guys been running together forever. It's really cool. And man, one thing I remember about Jeff in closing is he had this beautiful jump shot. He could pull up and let that thing go. He could really shoot it. And with his height and length, that was nasty, man. I think about that periodically and have since I met him. And so I know you guys had a good time playing at USF.
I'll take it now that that's far from anything, but we're going to end on that. That's my highlight. I played a lot of one-on-one. I don't know if I lost a whole bunch, but I could never beat you. And you were, just so tough to play against. But thank you so much for coming on the show, for being a friend. Excited because this is just going to rekindle stuff. I will say the last thing, listeners, we're starting this Pizza with Purpose, and we're picking one person in each state. And we're going to get to as many states as we can, basically going to just love on people to make sure people are seen, heard, and loved. And we're using our pizza to do that. So start following us on Instagram a little bit. You'll start to see some things coming out. We got California knocked out already. We got Oregon and Washington scheduled for September. Wow. And we're coming to a state near you. So,
nice.
Brandle, thank you again. Pasho, thank you again. Listeners, thank you. Boom, baby. That just happened. We out.